Hello everyone and welcome to another car profile. This week we're looking at the brand new Mazda RX Vision GT3 concept. Now, as you can tell by the name, this is a concept car developed by Mazda for Gran Turismo, and it's their vision of a GT3 car. This car has a rotary engine, and let's be honest, in the past the 787B, which also had a rotary engine, is probably one of the best sounding cars in the world, or ever. And this has the same sort of engine. It absolutely screams, and it does replicate that, so if you are in a race with one of these cars, you'll hear it before you actually see it. Now, obviously there's no real world racing history, so I won't bore you with any of that sort of stuff, but we'll jump straight on to the car statistics. In terms of the drivetrain, it is FR, although you could argue it's FMR because the engine is actually sits behind the front axle there, so it's front mid-engined rear-wheel drive there. Now, in terms of the horsepower, it originally starts with 562, and it actually gets brought down for the Group 3 category to 94%, which is 528. In terms of the weight, it originally starts at 1,250. That increases to 1,325 kilograms. That's 106%. And in terms of the torque figure, this is an interesting figure which we'll get onto later. It's 51.7. Now, this isn't very high, and you'll see the impact of this later on. Now, in terms of the transmission, you rev it to very near the limiter. Not quite at the limiter, but very near it. And I'm going to give you the scores, like always, for the car that Gran Turismo produced themselves. So on the racing hard tyres, we have scores of max speed, 6.7, acceleration, 5.2, braking, 3.9, cornering, 3.9, and stability of 5.8. So that's all the juicy details for the Mazda RX Vision GT3 concept. Let's jump to the first test at Dragontrail Seaside and let's discuss the car's traits a little bit more. So, Dragontrail Seaside. Here we're testing, of course, Kerbs, the power of the car as well. Does it get unstable anywhere? And for the most part, this car is okay. It doesn't understeer, really. The problem is oversteer. Now, it does have some weird quirks with oversteer. So, if you go back to the days of my early tests with the MR cars where they had sort of snap oversteer under braking with the weight shifts of the car, this is what this car does now. It's very bizarre. You have to get used to it. Definitely not a beginner's car. So if you're looking at a car and you're new to Gran Turismo, I would recommend not picking this car, even though it sounds absolutely glorious. I just constantly had a little bit of oversteer there, especially to turn one. I really suffered with it a lot. Dropping to second gear really shifted the weight of the car, meant it got a huge amount of rotation. So just be careful of that with this car. Curbs have been absolutely fine, really. But as I say, as you brake and as that weight shifts, so coming down here, for example, the initial weight transfer you got here, you notice I do a late shift to second there. I went a little bit deep this time because I'm scared of the whole car rotating if I downshift any earlier. So the chicane of death is actually really nice in this car. I could absolutely fly through here. I was attacking it so much during these laps. And you'll see on the right hand side, there's a couple of 140s in there. That's where I was just attacking it so hard and I just hit it. But I had confidence. The car feels very narrow, so you could fire it through there and not really worry too much about potential death there. So we'll just leave this last corner now. As you can see, we are in the 37s or low 37s in terms of our optimum, which is primarily the time we are using here. Which is not too bad. It's faster than the obviously Aston, which was the slowest. But let's have a look at our final optimum there. It's the 1:37.413. Now, new for this week, I'm actually able to show you some leaderboards. Hurrah! Let's jump to that now. And you can see them there. So obviously Ford GT there. Mazda comes in P2, way ahead of the BMW and way ahead of the Aston Martin. We jump to Interlagos now. Apologies for no TV camera for this one. I just forgot to say the replay. That's all it was, really. But in terms of Interlagos, this is more about handling. Does it handle the curves still very well? Undulations, anything like that. Now, one of the things with this car, I would say, is that even though it's FR, and FR primarily are power-based cars, so, you know, they're more for the top-end speed. As I said just before, it handles like the old MR cars. And it is actually a handling car, this car. It handles itself so well. In the S's on Dragontrail, for example, I forgot to mention, it didn't understeer. I could flat it for the most part. And same on Interlagos. I found that I could actually turn the car very nicely. Now, I'm on 0 brake balance. A lot of people ask me what brake balance I use. It's always 0 brake balance. I never, never, never change the brake balance. I use the car as it's designed by Polyphony. Brake balance is also personal preference. Some people will want it a bit more forward. Someone might want it to the rear. Personally, I would go forward with this car, if you're wondering. In terms of the section 2 there, the innards of Interlagos there, you can see no real issue with understeer here. We come through here, a slight lift there, nothing major. You know, in other cars, we've had to lift for quite a while on that left-hander. Didn't have to do it here. We accelerate through the corner now, and we head up the hill. Now, of course, on Dragontrail, we saw that it wasn't as powerful as the Ford GT, so I wasn't expecting it to do that well here in the grand scheme of it. But in terms of handling car, it was great. But we got our fastest lap on lap 4, weirdly, which was it's unusual for us. Normally we get it towards the end of the session, but 1:31.3, we got confident very quickly with the car once we understood how the braking works. And that's the critical thing with this car, understanding it. You can then see all my times on the right-hand side. Optimum down to 1:31.1 down there on the right. And again, that puts it in P2 right behind the Ford. As I say, handling circuit, it brought the Mazda very close to the Ford at this circuit. We now go to Suzuka, which of course is more the bounce circuit. I say this every time. So we've got some fast sections in there, and we have some handling sections in there as well. So we saw it Interlagos. The power car still beats the handling car slightly. Now we're coming to trail braking first of all here, turn 1, which is critical. I'll go back to that comment in a second. It was very nice to trail brake. The odd time the weight shifted and it meant I ran wide. So do be careful of that. And I'll repeat myself again. If you think back to the old MR car profiles, it's handling itself exactly like that. So you just have to be careful. You see I'm just managing the car at this point in time. There's no power oversteer, so you never have to worry about that. And you'll see why shortly, actually, why there's no power oversteer. It's quite hilarious. I've already mentioned the torque figure. Yeah, it's to do with that. But anyway, we come towards Tidgney 1 and Tidgney 2. Absolutely fine through here, to be honest with you. Had no real issues. I could really attack Tidgney 2 there. As you can see, I'm running all the way out wide. Heading towards the hairpin. I was unsure with first or second gear here. I say it's not really that good with the torque figure. You've seen that already. But I go to first here. I can accelerate out. There's a tiny bit of wheel spin, but then it just goes. You can see I actually get quite a good hairpin there. But yes, going back to my previous statement, you know, power car at Dragontrail was obviously dominant. Interlagos, that handling car came more into the fray. Obviously, the Ford's a bit of an MR car, so it does handle a bit better than the FR cars. But here at Suzuka, this is the balanced circuit. So come through Spoon. I did suffer a little bit of understeer on Spoon. I'm not sure why I got it. Maybe it was just gear selection at the time for this car. It just maybe doesn't suit the gearing for that one corner. But even so, we carry on now towards the 130R. You can see on our right side, we're in the 158s, which is where I'm expecting cars to be in terms of this car profile series that we're doing now versus the previous one. We come through 130R, we just make that safe and sound, and we come towards the chicane. I had to brake a little bit earlier for the chicane because I could do the 130R slightly quicker than normal. But through we go, and we accelerate out. Look, no problems out the chicane, no real power oversteer there. We accelerate towards the line, and we're going to get a 159.018. Our optimum down to 158.923. I think there was a slight improvement there right at the end. And it goes actually to a 922 because we improved it slightly more later on. But you can see our times there. At lap 10, we got a penalty in the end, so we had to obviously bin that off, but finish the lap. And in terms of the leaderboards, the Mazda actually beat the Ford here by 0.02 of a second. I'd say it's a balanced circuit. So the handling car just beats a power car there in terms of the MR. Now, in summary, overall, you can see there the Ford beats the Mazda across all 3 tracks by 0.5 second, but they're way ahead of the other 2 cars there. What we're going to do now is what we always do, fuel tyre test and also the acceleration test. Now, check out this for acceleration. Look, you hardly need traction control. Traction control wasn't needed from 20 miles an hour, but we always use it until we change gear, and then we get to the 100 point there, and you can see that 8 seconds, 8.016 seconds. It is slow. So slow, in fact, the AI car is overtaking us. It is really slow to 100. So bear that in mind. If you have a grid start, this car is atrocious, and we know that from the torque figure as well. It was extremely low, and that's why we also don't get power oversteer. There's just no power there in terms of, you know, initial torque, the push factor, you know, accelerating away, just none there. Once it gets going, it's fine, because then it's a handling car. It can go around corners quickly, so it can maintain that speed, you know, in the lap. But getting going is where it struggles, you know, out of slow corners, it will struggle. So we're going to continue through the Interlagos lap. Obviously I'm racing soft tyres this time. Tyre wear is times 10. Fuel is also times 10. And we're just seeing what the fuel and tyre is going to be like at the end of the 4 laps. I'm not going to show you the 4 laps. I'm just showing you the first lap and then we'll jump to the 4th lap. You can already tell by the fuel, we're doing very well on fuel. Fuel in this car seems to be pretty good. In fact, I'm underestimating it. Fuel in this car is absolutely solid. It is ridiculously good on fuel, this car. I have no idea why. Remember, I'm going to the limit here in terms of what the car's meant to do here. We'll fly around that left-hander. We just short shift there a little bit, but tiny little short shifts here, there, and everywhere as I drive around 4 laps. It's nothing hugely major, but we come through this last corner. We accelerate now. We're going to advance to lap number 4, and you can see on the right-hand side we're at 20% fuel. Now, if you go back to the power car, for example, of the Ford, that was down at 2% when we got to the line. We're about to see what it is when we get to the line in a second, because we will stop it the minute we see the word finish. There we go. 15% fuel. And that's flat out, remember. Flat out. So big increase there over the other cars. Very good lap times as well. Only the first lap was dodgy. Obviously, we had to overtake the AI. We jump in now to the tyre wear indicators. Very good tyres as well. You know, all above 70 across the board there. I was asked to bring those tyre indicators back, so I have done it there for you. So all in all, a good car in terms of its usage, in terms of tyre and fuel. Not very good at grid starts. Be a bit careful under braking, I would say, with this car. We get a 6:08 there. So quite a quick race time there in the grand scheme of it. I think if the first lap was better in terms of its acceleration off the line, it would actually be quicker than the Ford even. But yeah, in terms of this car, it's a handling car, okay? It's not necessarily about power. You've got to be careful under the brakes because of any weight transfer and the rear just rotating a little bit there. So my suggestion with the brakes is to put the brake balance towards the front. You're sitting there as well. You know, in terms of power, we're going to struggle. But if it's a fuel race or tyre race, this car could actually do very well. And I do believe a couple of people have used it recently when Dragontrail Seaside was a fuel race. And you've seen there, it is good on fuel. But that's going to be it for me now, folks, in terms of this car profile. I hope you enjoyed the new Mazda. And I look forward to seeing you in more future car profiles very soon.